On the battered plains of Donetsk Oblast, where artillery has carved deep wounds into the earth and trenches twist across the fields like scars, the city of Pokrovsk has become far more than just another point on a military map. It has become a front line of survival, a place where the fate of soldiers and civilians collides with the larger destiny of a nation. For Ukraine, Pokrovsk is a shield protecting vital supply routes and deeper cities to the west. For Russia, it is a prize, a stepping stone that could propel its armies further into Ukrainian territory. Whoever controls Pokrovsk controls the tempo of this brutal war. Once a bustling mining town, Pokrovsk now lies in ruins. Its streets, once alive with markets and laughter, are filled with debris, shattered glass, and the silence of displacement. Schools and factories stand broken, their walls pockmarked by shell fire, their windows blown out by relentless bombardments. The echoes of daily life have been replaced by the roar of artillery and the constant crack of sniper fire. To stand here is to stand in a city that no longer belongs to civilians, but has been consumed entirely by the machinery of war. In this devastated landscape, Russian forces sought to gain a foothold. Confident in their numbers, they began to push into the outskirts of Pokrovsk, believing the desolate ruins would conceal their movement. But what they did not realize was that they were walking into the sights of the Azov Brigade. For days, Azov reconnaissance units tracked them relentlessly. High above, Ukrainian drones circled silently, capturing every formation, every supply run, even down to the careless moments when Russian soldiers lit cigarettes at night. Hidden among the crumbling homes and broken walls, Azov scouts watched, taking note of each shift in Russian behavior. Every detail, no matter how small, was relayed back to Azov command. Piece by piece, a complete map of Russian presence was built in the minds of the brigade's leaders. Then came the intelligence breakthrough. Within a span of just 48 hours, Ukrainian sources confirmed devastating results. The Azov Brigade had already eliminated more than 150 Russian soldiers, wounded over 70 others, and crucially, captured 8 Russian troops alive. This was not just a rumor or battlefield boast. Reports were confirmed by Ukrainian outlets such as RBC Ukraine and further echoed by independent channels like Militarny and even open-source forums like Reddit. The message was clear. The battle for Pokrovsk was no longer abstract. It was a tangible victory, measured in hard numbers and living prisoners of war. The night before the decisive assault, the atmosphere inside Azov's makeshift command post was electric. The brigade had taken over the ruined basement of a church, its walls cracked by shelling, its once sacred halls now filled with maps, weapons, and determination. Commanders studied satellite images and drone footage projected onto walls. Orders were sharp and uncompromising. Strike at dawn, seal every escape route, leave them no way out, capture, not chaos. The plan was simple, but its execution would demand discipline and precision. Qualities the Azov Brigade had built its reputation upon since the first days of the war. And then came the dawn. As the first light broke over Pokrovsk, silence gave way to thunder. Mortar rounds rained down, filling the air with dust and smoke. Automatic rifles barked in deadly unison. Azov fighters advanced like shadows through the ruins, their movements practiced, controlled, and relentless. The Russian forces, though larger in number, were stunned by the speed and coordination of the assault. Every alley they tried to use as a retreat was already sealed. Every position they attempted to reinforce was already under fire. Within minutes, confidence turned into chaos. The climax of the battle came at an abandoned warehouse on the city's edge. Inside, dozens of Russian soldiers had holed up, barricading the entrances and preparing to make a last stand. But Azov's strategy was merciless. Grenades shattered their cover, rifle fire raked the walls, and the pressure mounted with every passing second. Smoke filled the warehouse, choking the defenders. Ammunition dwindled. The Russians fought back desperately, but the outcome was inevitable. One by one, they laid down their rifles. Hands rose into the air. Their voices called out in surrender. The cameras captured it all. Azov soldiers escorting lines of disarmed Russian prisoners through the shattered streets of Pokrovsk. The images quickly spread across social media. Within hours, they had gone viral, not just in Ukraine, but across Europe, the United States, and beyond. For Ukrainians, it was a moment of pride, proof that discipline and courage could overcome numbers. For Russians, it was a humiliation, a blow to the carefully constructed image of invincibility their propaganda machine had worked so hard to maintain. The sight of captured soldiers in Pokrovsk cut through the noise of state-controlled narratives. It showed vulnerability, it showed defeat, and that psychological impact rippled far beyond the battlefield. For Ukraine, the implications of this success were enormous. It was not merely a tactical victory, nor simply the capture of 8 enemy soldiers. It was a moment that lifted morale across the entire country. In a war where every day is marked by loss and sacrifice, such victories serve as reminders that resistance is not futile, that the aggressor is not invincible, and that every battle can shift the course of history. For Russia, the consequences were the opposite. Confidence among their troops faltered. Families back home asked questions. Moscow scrambled to bury the story or twist it into propaganda. But the truth had already traveled too far. Strategists looking at the Pokrovsk operation noted several key lessons. First, the effectiveness of drone reconnaissance cannot be overstated. By mapping Russian movements in such detail, Azov ensured that their attack was never blind, never reckless. Second, the discipline of small, coordinated units allowed them to neutralize a numerically superior enemy without suffering heavy losses themselves. And third, the psychological value of taking prisoners alive was immense. Dead enemies are statistics. Captured enemies are proof, living, undeniable proof of victory. The statistics tell a brutal story. More than 150 Russian soldiers eliminated in 48 hours, over 70 more wounded, and 8 captured alive. These numbers, confirmed by multiple Ukrainian sources including RBC Ukraine, demonstrate the scale of the blow delivered at Pokrovsk. Other analysts highlighted that Russian troops in the area were already stretched thin, overextended, and demoralized. The Azov Brigade did not just exploit weakness, they created it through relentless pressure and careful timing. As the dust settled, one truth became undeniable. Pokrovsk had become a symbol, not just of resistance, but of resilience. The Azov Brigade showed that with intelligence, discipline, and unbreakable will, even the strongest offensive could be broken. This battle will not end the war, but it will be remembered as one of those moments where history tilts, where morale shifts, and where the world is reminded that Ukraine's defenders are not merely fighting, they are winning moments that matter. And so the story of Pokrovsk joins the growing history of this war, a reminder of how much can be achieved with courage, clarity, and conviction. For the Azov Brigade, it was another chapter in their legacy of resistance. For Ukraine, it was a message to the world. The fight is far from over, but victory is possible. This is Delta history.
Зв'язку немає, так? Зв'язку немає, так?